He's Jim Stewart. I'm Rick Collins, and this is Off the Bench. Today we got a lot of football. We've got college football review, NFL Sunday review. We got Monday Night Football preview. We got a Cowboys review first, but then we're going to have World Series and NBA talk today. So it's a full schedule on tap. Let's go straight into the Cowboys. I mean, a big win for them this weekend. They had to have this game.
And they proved that this year they can play in the weather, which that was one of the most rain-soaked games we've seen all season. It didn't stop, and it was basically a downpour in Washington, which you don't really see that a whole lot.
Well, remember, this is like the 5-year anniversary of that storm. I think it was Sandy that went through the Northeast, and all that horrible weather they had then, and the entire Northeast had horrible weather again. Every single game that I watched yesterday was just, downpours. And it definitely affected offenses, because we look at the offensive output of a lot of these games. Even though you had teams that were winless that couldn't defend anything, they were still able to stay in games this weekend.
Oh, yeah. Look at the Cowboys. They took advantage of a blocked field goal. The Redskins couldn't make a conversion or field goal attempts. It was crazy. And I really think that happened with botched snaps, long snappers having a hard time getting the ball to the kick holder, the holders being able to hold on to the ball. And a lot of the footing was really horrible.
We even saw Jones have a really bad punt, which is very unusual for him. He's usually very solid. Our kicking game in general has been awesome for the last 2 or 3 years. Jones and Bailey have been dynamite.
And Gold was good this game. And that was something that's really confusing to me, is how did he get let go if he's doing such a good job? And that wasn't easy conditions to be able to kick in. But, you know, going beyond that, the turnovers is what killed the Redskins. We predicted that the Redskins would put up a fight and possibly even win, but with those conditions, it really took the explosiveness out of the Redskins, because they're not a run team.
Yeah, and you saw what the Cowboys did, which was just run it down the Redskins' throat. They said, no matter how many yards per carry we get, we've got to keep the ball on the ground. Now, you saw that Zeke did give up a fumble early on in the game, but after that, he was really solid. 4.5 yards per carry, that's above his season average, below last year. So we're still looking at a bit of a sophomore slump, but he's still in the top half of running backs in the league in terms of yards per attempt. The question is, are they running him into the ground after last year being the lead in attempts and runs, and then this year he's second in attempts?
The Cowboys sort of are in a catch-22 situation when it comes to their offense. The offense, and they've proven it when Zeke and this whole drama off the field really took a toll on his mental ability to prep for these games and for the whole team as a whole. But the real problem you see on the field now is this Cowboys offense does not go if they do not feed Zeke. And I really am nervous that Zeke is going to turn out to be like one of these Alabama players that come out into the draft, and you can see the ramifications their first couple of years in the NFL. They're run to death. And that's what they're doing. He had by far the most carries last year. He's up there in carries this year. He's getting the yards, but he's getting the yards because he's not making big runs.
Yeah.
And you were talking about this before the show, is that he looked a little sluggish.
Yeah, last year we just remember all the big runs he had, all the 20-plus yard carries that he had. So many times that he would get to the second level and make a linebacker miss and force a safety to come up and
or
make
run
a
him
stop.
over.
Yeah, and force a safety to come up and make a stop. And this year, we're seeing him get tackled at the second level a lot more. He's not getting to that third level nearly as often. So his longest run so far this year has only been 30 yards, and there haven't been many outside of 20 yards. He's only had 4 carries outside of 20 yards. So I think there's still a concern about his fitness coming into this year, because I think right at the beginning of the year, everybody said he looks a step slower than last year, just remembering how explosive he was last year. And coming into this year and expecting the same thing and not seeing it yet.
My question is, was he really that explosive last year, or was that offensive line so good that they were getting it so that he wasn't getting touched until he was into the second level?
You look a lot more explosive when you're not getting grabbed by a defensive end before you get to the second level. That's
or you're having to evade a defensive end to be able to get in the second level. Zeke I think is a product of the offensive line that was in front of him. I'm not saying he's not a good running back, but I don't think he's that once-in-a-generation running back. Well, and remember,
the offensive line last year was the #1 offensive line in the league. Coming into this year, they
lost two players, Doug Free and their left guard.
Yes, and Ronald Leary. And so there were concerns about would this offensive line be able to just kind of put a Band-Aid on it to hold it together for
put a left guard at right tackle who's left-handed.
Right.
And that was a big change. And I think, like I said, and we've said before, I think this off-field distraction coming up is an issue. I really don't see him getting better. I'm not saying he's not going to have good games in the future, but if this offensive line does not get seriously better, he's not going to have the kinds of years he had last year. I'm not saying that that's bad, because he maybe is just one of these players that just grinds people into the ground. Maybe he has the legs. Maybe he has the body to be able to put up with 10 years of 30 carries a year, pounding it. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that, because for 70 years in the NFL, that's the way things were. You had a workhorse back who gave you 30, 35 carries a game and was able to last 10 years.
And he's got a strong build. He's got a bit of an Emmitt Smith build. It's possible that he will be able to stand up to that kind of punishment. But there's a problem when you try and compare him to Emmitt Smith. Emmitt Smith had Troy Aikman throwing the ball. Mm-hmm. And right now, Dak definitely looks nothing like Troy Aikman did.
Well, he's having the same problems we said again at the beginning of the year, is that Dak has serious problems throwing the ball down the field with accuracy. Serious problems. This isn't just a sophomore slump. He didn't do it last year. He threw very few balls down the field. He's trying a little bit more this year, but he's very inaccurate. He's not an Aaron Rodgers who can throw 40 yards down the field and get it to the outside shoulder.
Well, can we even say he's not even a Tony Romo, because
or an Andy Dalton?
The best way to look at it would be to look at Dez's stats with Tony Romo versus Dez's stats with Dak.
But you have to look at it the first 2 years.
Right? Dez hasn't changed that much of a player. He's basically the same player, but when you add Romo, who was capable of being accurate on those 50-50 balls to get them to a spot where Dak can make a play, Dak was making those plays. But Dez was making those plays. But Dak can't quite get the ball into the same spots as Romo used to be able to get him into. And Dez's production's gone down.
Well, let's take a look at this. So Dez, this year, there are 41 players that have more yards than him in the NFL. He only has 366 yards on 32 receptions. That's horrible.
Yeah.
And it's not that he's not demanding the ball. You saw it as well as I did yesterday. He was in Dak's face. He was in the offensive coach's face. He was in the offensive coordinator's face. He was in Jason Garrett's face saying, I need the ball, to the point where Jason Witten needed to get in his face to basically bring him down to be able to be effective. The problem is he doesn't get separation anymore.
Yeah.
And, like you said, Dak is not the most accurate quarterback. The question is, he demands to be a #1 wide receiver, and he's not. There's 10 more receivers in the league, including a couple tight ends who have more touchdowns than him, and there's 29 that have more receptions. That's not on Dak. That's not on Dez. That's not on the coach. He needs to be able to get separation. That's the problem he has. That's why I made the outlandish opinion of make him a tight end. And I mean an off-the-line tight end.
A split end.
Yeah. Make him a tight end so he's going against linebackers. He can beat linebackers all day.
I think the only problem is when you're a split end, you have to be a good route runner, because
he's
you're
not
running,
that either.
Yeah, and so there's a problem there. But looking at split end, Beasley was the guy we expected to be their split end, the guy who was going to play in a tailback form, not tailback formation, but just off the line,
like a Patriot style formation.
Exactly. And he's injured, but he hasn't done anything. He has not accomplished one thing during this year. And Ryan Switzer has not really accomplished much during this year.
But Ryan Switzer hasn't gotten a lot of burn. So, he had a couple attempts at the beginning of the year, and maybe he gets 5 or 6 attempts a game. I mean attempts as in snaps.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times he's been thrown to. But, he fumbled a couple punts this year, and it's really thrown him into a little bit of Jason Garrett's doghouse. I really think they need to give Switzer a good burn. They need to make sure that they know what he's worth before they throw him on the
One
scrap
of those
heap.
two guys needs to be productive
Because Dez isn't going to pick up the slack.
No.
Jason Witten is at the tail end of his career. You shouldn't be throwing to him 10 times a game.
We don't know what Terrence Williams is, really. He's been surprisingly good so far this year, but based on his history, I can't say that this is a new Terrence Williams yet. If he does it throughout the rest of the season, maybe we could say that, but I just haven't seen enough of him yet at this level to say that he's going to be a good player going forward. I think we have concerns going forward in our wide receiver, our receiving core all together, because
if you break down,
Zeke seems to be the best receiver they have.
Yeah, so break down the core real quick when it comes to the
you've got Dez Bryant, Bryce Butler, Terrence Williams as your outside guys. Those are your three outside guys. You got Beasley, Switzer, Jason Witten as your inside guys, and then Zeke as and Morris coming out as dump off. And really, our dump off has been our most productive passing team.
And the real thing is why don't we bring? And I know, God, the outlandish is what I've been going at. But if Dez can't get separation, and that's the point of the number one, is downfield, get separation, make big plays to make sure that the defense doesn't crowd the line so that Zeke can get some run yards. Why don't we try, like you said, moving Dez Bryant? And if he's not becoming effective, I'm sorry, Dez, put Bryce Butler out there. Yeah. Let's see what he can do, because he can stretch the field.
I think we need to see what Bryce Butler can do. I don't know if it's at the expense of Dez or Terrence Williams.
What is Dez doing?
But
he's not doing anything.
I think
hold on. So at 41, with 41 players with more yards, with 10 with more touchdowns, and 29 with more receptions, in yards alone, which is explosion, which is targeting, which is catches, there are. But every single number one wide receiver in the league is above him.
Again, we're talking and in terms of touchdowns, they're not, because if there's only 10, that doesn't mean they're.
But I said in yards.
But I'm saying let's not continue to treat him like a number one wide receiver.
Yes, and he's not even.
We need a number one wide receiver on this team. We don't have one.
In yardage alone, he's not even a top number two.
Yeah.
There are 32 players above him that are considered number ones. I mean, 31 if you take away the Cowboys.
Yeah.
And then you've got the rest of 41. From 31 to 41, there are 10 players above him who are considered number twos, because those are the guys that are on other teams already with a number one above them.
But nothing's going to happen until the offseason. I think that's where we're going to see the Cowboys need.
You're not going to let me get all worked up about this?
No, because we got to move on to other NFL Sunday review. We had a great Sunday night football game if you like field goals and defense.
We predicted a horrible weekend, and that's what we got.
That's what we got. Next.
We're so excited to invite you to our Stacy Furniture Anniversary Sale.
Save today on Stacy's outstanding selection, up to 50% off select items throughout the store.
Now's the time to buy that new bedroom, living room, or dining room suit. You can't beat these prices anywhere.
Name brands like Bernhard, Hooker, Universal, and Sherrill, all on sale today.
It's Stacy's Anniversary Sale, only happens once a year.
Shop Stacy's today or visit us online at stacyfurniture.com.
Remember, when you're shopping at Stacy's, you're shopping with family.
We're back, and we're talking Sunday NFL review. Not much to talk about, to be honest. I mean, there was one exciting game, but of course it was during the time that we were watching the Cowboys game. Much more exciting, though. I ended up flipping over to CBS and watching much more of that game. But first, the Philadelphia Eagles, that was the game that, look, we knew they were going to win. We wanted to see what they would do against the 49ers. Horrible conditions. Wentz still dominated that game. He's showing more and more every week his ability to get away. Carson Wentz, to get away from defensive ends. It's incredible. His ability to get away from players. He looks like a young Roethlisberger. That's what I see.
In a lot of ways, I think he's as athletic as a Andrew Luck when he first came in, being able to evade. But what we got to look at is right now in the division, which is the NFC East, which is what anybody in this area cares about. I hate to say it, but the anthem being played over it is "Fly, Eagles, fly on the road to victory." That's what's being played on the loudspeaker over every single team in the division, even the home games, because that is what people know is happening right now. Cowboys sit there and they go, "We won our game," but so did the Eagles.
Yes.
And they're now 4 games behind. So they are 4-3.
Yeah.
And the Eagles are
7-1.
7-1. So sorry, 3
games behind.
3 games. And I don't know if they're going to be able to catch up, nor if they do, I don't think they could beat them.
And the Cowboys aren't going to get a break for the rest of the season. They've hit their bye week already.
Yep.
The Eagles haven't even hit their bye week.
And they've already played the easy games they're going to play.
Yeah.
Now they've got to play the Eagles. They've got to play the Redskins again. They got to play the Giants, which that's going to be a rollover game. But
well, you hope.
Yes.
One would hope.
The question is, for the Cowboys, can they get the Dak problem solved, which is his ability to throw down the field? I don't know what else they can do other than simplify the offense, but they can't do that right now because it's his second year. They can't regress the playbook for him.
Yeah, and Carson Wentz is showing the exact opposite ability.
Oh.
He's throwing more and more down the field
with accuracy.
Yes, with accuracy. And that Eagles receiving core, which at the beginning of the season,
subpar.
Yeah, we definitely think would be subpar. Aguilar is making huge plays. Ertz, obviously, we know what Ertz is capable of doing, but he hasn't really shown it. Up until really this year, he's really exploded. Last year, he had a very good year.
I've had a thought.
But I think a lot of people thought he had really peaked last year.
I have a thought.
Don't think
so it looks like more and more, and you saw it with the Rams and Goff, that a lot of these players who are struggling, it's not all them when it comes to quarterback. It's the head coach.
Yeah.
So the question is Dak struggling because Dak isn't good enough down the field? Or is it that the Cowboys are not calling the right plays down the field? Because, it's a bit of a cone, right? So receivers have to be good. But they can't be good if they don't have a good quarterback.
Yeah.
They get them the ball. If the quarterback isn't good, the coaches need to be able to call plays for the quarterback to be successful. If the quarterback does not get successful plays, the whole team falls apart. Yeah. So at what point do we start going, okay, right now we have figured that the wide receivers for the Cowboys are not the greatest. At least our number one isn't.
Yeah.
Then you go to Dak. Okay, well, we're starting to look at Dak now. As a media community, we're starting to look at Dak now. Okay, Dak is struggling, throwing down the field. We all saw it last year. No one wanted to look at it. No one wanted to see the elephant in the room, but that is the elephant. Now, when is it going to be time for us to start looking at the coaching staff? Because Garrett's had 8 years here, and he's been subpar the entire time.
Well, I think it's going to, this year, if they don't make the playoffs, I think they're going to say, look, you got one more year. If you can't get these young guys together and moving forward and getting to the playoffs in 2018, then that's it.
Yeah, because we want to see more games like Seattle and Houston.
Yes.
That was an unbelievable game.
Really unbelievable game. But both teams came in thinking, okay, this is going to be a defensive effort on both sides of the ball. The Seahawks are known as being a defensive team, and Houston has shown this year they're a defensive team. Now, Houston has a lot of injuries.
Yes.
And that's causing them defensive problems.
So Houston has injuries, and the Seahawks are old.
Yes. And it showed big time yesterday because both those quarterbacks, and they look like mirror images of each other, the way they were both getting out of the pocket, avoiding defensive players, and making plays downfield. I mean, Watson, look, we knew he was going to be okay because he's got weapons to go to. I mean, when you have Hopkins and you've got Lamar Miller coming out of the back, and he's got guys to throw to. The question was, could he get the ball to them? Man.
I've got to say,
he's been incredible.
And I seem to be saying this over.
Highest QBR in the league.
Sorry, I seem to be saying this over and over and over again. Let's enjoy this first year, enjoy him succeeding, but we need to slow our roll with this whole
slow our roll on Watson, but not slow our roll on Dak.
No, well, yes, on both. But Watson, it's his first year. CP3 did well.
Yeah.
All these quarterbacks that come first year in, no one has tape on them, so of course they're going to do well because they don't know what skills, weaknesses, and strengths. Sorry, RG3. What skills and strengths and weaknesses they have.
He looks like he's much more thoughtful when he's
like
running
a Dak who
than
can throw the ball.
RG3 was, though.
No, but he's a Dak who can throw the ball down the field. That should recipe for success because he doesn't seem to be flappable. My question becomes, how long can he hold up for? Is he going to hit that wall? And if he doesn't, the real question is, what is he going to do once they figure him out? Because we're joking ourselves if we think that these coaches like Bill Belichick cannot figure out a player like DeShaun Watson. But 1,700 yards, one game.
Yes. No. 1,700 yards for the season, not in the one game. That would be incredible. He had over 400 yards in this game, though. Both quarterbacks.
It was almost 900. 900, 1,700, who cares? But we need to talk weapons as he had down the field. Like you said, Hopkins had, this is nuts, Hopkins had 61% of Dez Bryant's total production in the whole year.
Yeah.
366 yards.
In one game.
366 yards, 33 receptions. Hopkins did over 200 yards.
Yes, 228 on
8 receptions.
Yeah.
8 receptions. That's insane.
No, Hopkins and Fuller are both downfield threats. They've still got work to do underneath. I think Lamar Miller's a good enough running back. Mm-hmm. I think there were concerns about him based on last year's production, but clearly this year it's a lot better. And I think that's bringing in a young quarterback who can throw the ball down the field. That's giving him more space to run. He's still a good running back. That offense can move the ball. They've proven it this year. The question is, once they get to the, past the midway point now, our defense is going to start figuring this out and shutting it down because you know that they're not going to be able to adjust mid-game. This is not an offense with a young quarterback that's going to be able to adjust mid-game. They have a style of play. They're going to continue that style of play. If they get against a team that can shut down Hopkins and Fuller down the field and has a good enough rush to get to Watson, can they shut him down? I think there's concerns because their defense clearly is not going to stop anyone right now. No. Not with all the injuries they have.
And when it comes to O'Brien, is Watson enough to make up for the Osweiler mistake?
Man.
Because I don't think, as long as he's winning, as long as Watson looks good, I don't think anybody's going to think of Osweiler. But that was a lot of money that they spent outside of that. And I think we need to look forward a little bit at some of the other games that are going on. Next game, which one impressed you?
Well,
or depressed you? Impressed or depressed?
I think the Sunday night game has got to be the only other game that was a legitimate game during this weekend. Because look, you had two different defenses that have been capable, have shown themselves to be capable this year. The problem was red zone conversions for these offenses. And Pittsburgh converted in the red zone when they had to. They got the one touchdown from Le'Veon Bell. Now, everything that led up to their touchdowns, they were long plays down the field. In fact, one of their plays that they scored a touchdown on was a 97-yard pass. In fact, Roethlisberger threw it from midway in the end zone. So it was really a 105-yard pass play. And that was the only reason that Pittsburgh won this game. Detroit managed the clock. They rammed it down the Pittsburgh Steelers' throat in the passing game. But because they have no running game, they could not convert in the red zone. That's killing them. No matter how good Stafford is, you have to be able to run the dang ball.
And I've never seen anything like the Pittsburgh Steelers this year in the sense that I've never seen so much chaos turn into something on the field that actually is a watchable product, if not a winning product.
How are they 5-2 right now?
Especially with the amount of pointing and saying, they've been calling out the coach.
They've been.
Yeah, but they've been calling out the coach. They've been calling out players. They've been calling out. They had to sit a player because he won.
Martavis Bryant.
And then when they sit him, a new kid comes in and has like a dynamite, career game.
Yeah, especially after the guy who got sat for calling out Schuster as not being nearly as good as him, and then Schuster goes out and flat out destroys Martavis Bryant's numbers.
Oh, almost for the season.
Yeah,
it's insane. Yeah. But I think the more and more that the Steelers go back to running the ball.
Yes.
And really, they were the Cowboys before the Cowboys when it comes to Zeke and Dak, where they just run the ball, throw the ball.
Le'Veon Bell with Roethlisberger.
The problem is
exactly it.
Ben Roethlisberger is accurate down the field.
Yes.
That's the only difference. And Antonio Brown can run routes.
Yes.
And Antonio Brown can get separation. And
they've got other weapons down the field, obviously, with Schuster-Smith and with Bryant when he does come back.
It just seems to be an and team. And they've got more weapons. And their defense is playing better. And Ben Roethlisberger is playing better. And
despite Roethlisberger having a ridiculously slow start, and look at the numbers from last night. Almost all of his passing yards came on these huge plays. Outside of that, he really didn't do a whole lot. But they made plays when they needed to make plays.
Well, let's talk about your pick for the NFC North. What is going on with your Detroit Lions?
Run the ball. And
I know you said that already, but I think it's going to be a reoccurring theme throughout the year.
I think their biggest problem is they can pass the ball down. Stafford threw for 420. He can do that on a nightly basis. And he's got weapons to do it. But the problem is that they don't have a running game that once they get into the red zone, they can convert on all these.
That can help him because they're just backing out.
5 field goals. They got into the red zone 5 times and couldn't get a touchdown. They got to the 1 yard line. Couldn't get a touchdown. They get that touchdown, they win. They beat the Steelers. They go to 4-3 instead of 3-4, and now they're only a game out of the first, position in the NFC
And I've really been shocked because the Detroit Lions the last couple of years have been, well, if we get an offense, because they had a great defense. Now what has happened is they have a great offense, they have no defense.
They keep thinking they're one play away. And
they let go of Sue, they let go of all their anchor defensive players, and now their defense is subpar.
Yes.
They're average.
It's still good, but it is not good enough for a team that expected to make the playoffs.
And that's what I mean. Compared to what they used to be, they are subpar. And this is what happens when coaches and GMs have a lot of turnover, and each coach goes in and goes, well, I don't like Sue's antics. Well, the problem is Sue's one of the best defensive tackles in the league. Then they let go of Averill. Then they let go they let Megatron leave. How do you let Megatron leave?
Yeah.
He retired because he said, I didn't feel that they were trying to support me. Matt Stafford can only do so much.
Yeah.
That's why they paid him $125 million. Yeah. I don't know if as long as the owner, it's the same problem with Indy. As long as this owner is either still alive or still holding the team, I do not know if this is going to be a team that can make it.
Yeah.
Because if it becomes systemic in a couple of these teams, the Browns, the Lions, the Indianapolis Colts, that if they don't have a player,
like the Bengals too.
The Bungles are like, if they don't have a transcendent player, someone who can step in like a Peyton Manning and dominate everybody.
Yeah.
That they're not going to be able to pull off a lot of these victories, and they're not going to be able to put teams together because it comes from the top down, and the top just seems to be very cancerous right now.
And they just keep seeming to be, 1-2 players away, and then the next year they're 1 or 2 players away. You got 7 draft picks. You should be able to get 2 players in each of those drafts, and they can't seem to do it. Next, let's look at the Monday Night Football preview. We've actually got a really good matchup tonight. Despite the fact that both these teams have lost 2 in a row, both of these teams have to be hungry tonight. Mm-hmm. They both need this win desperately because, look at Kansas City, 5-2. They were leading, the AFC. Now they lose this game. They're no longer in control of their own, home field advantage, and their schedule doesn't get easier.
Yeah, and speaking of hungry, I'm hungry for Lolo's Chicken and Waffles, and we'll be talking about maybe having them as a sponsor next.
Marie, you have prediabetes.
Prediabetes? I don't have time to eat right or exercise. I'm a busy mom.
Oh, you're a busy mom.
Yeah.
This is great news. Busy moms never get prediabetes.
Wait, what?
Let me just... Yeah, this is all the people at risk for prediabetes, and way over here, busy moms. No?
Back Monday Night Football preview, we got the Chiefs and the Broncos. Both teams desperately in need of a win, and especially since both teams have lost 2 in a row now. I think this is going to be a defensive battle. I think Kansas City and Denver need to come out and show that they can run the ball.
But, both of them have proven they can run the ball effectively. They just have basically lost their identity the last couple games. I was about to say years, but the last couple games. Hunt needs to get back in. Which is funny because their star running back has the same last name as their owner. But Hunt, I don't know what has happened. I don't think they're related either. But I think they need to figure out something. Maybe they started changing the calls a little bit. Was there an injury to the offensive line? I don't know. to be able to start feeding this guy more and more. And I don't know, maybe it's sort of like in the NBA. If someone's struggling, they've got to shoot their way out of it. I think maybe they just need to keep feeding him.
Yeah.
Feed him until he finally breaks through and gets his confidence back, because we all know that confidence is a game breaker or a game maker.
Yeah, and the Kansas City Chiefs, they've been able to throw the ball down the field because the running game has been so effective for them. The last 2 weeks, they've not been nearly as effective in the running game. It's not injuries. I don't know what's going on. If he has something nagging, or the offensive line it was a tough couple of weeks, and so just struggling. They've got to run the ball. Both these teams have to be able to run the ball because their quarterbacks are sitting ducks back there. Both quarterbacks have gotten hit a lot this year. And
Smith is even an agile, athletic quarterback. And the surprise, I think, that the entire NFL needs to really appreciate and to really hope that this continues is Alex Smith has been awesome this year. His whole career has been, he's a game manager. Well, it took maybe Andy Reid going, okay, we're going to open up the offense. I'm going to start making you throw the ball down the field. And
they've got weapons now, too.
Yeah, his downfield throwing ability, I bet the Cowboys wish all day that Dak Prescott could throw the ball like Alex Smith. I am really hoping that the Chiefs can get their run game back on track, because when they do, when they have the ability to throw the ball down the field like they do, and they can run the ball like they have, it's going to be hard to stop this team, because that's why Hunt had so many rushing yards the first couple weeks. These linebackers and defensive backs and safeties had to back up to be able to cover these downfield threats, which opened up the running game for Hunt.
They also need to be able to run the ball, because this defense is slowly deteriorated as the year has gone on. Not from injuries, but it just looks like they're just not nearly as good as a lot of people thought they would be. And they've struggled to stop the run and the pass. I think that's where Denver could come out on top in this game, is if Denver's able to run the ball effectively.
Maybe they could bring back DeMarcus Ware.
They've got a shot at winning this thing. Denver's defense is where it's going to be at, though. Can they get pressure on Alex Smith? Can they get hits on him? They should be able to, because he's been sacked 21 times on the year. But Simeon, on the other side, has been sacked 22 times on the year. So, man, these quarterbacks, I feel like in this game, they are both going to take a beating. It's going to be who can run the ball just control the clock and run the ball.
And it sounds like that's been one of the weaknesses for Hunt. He's a great runner, great wide receiver, but he is smaller.
Yeah.
And I think that is a problem for the Chiefs long term, is that if he's going to be their feature back, he's got to be able to block better.
Well, remember what happened with Jamal Charles.
Yeah, he's got to be able to start blocking better, be able to start putting his body to use, because he is small. He might be short, but he is not skinny. He needs to be able to help Alex Smith when he needs to throw. Alex Smith should not be getting hit this much.
Yeah.
Because he's either bootlegging, trying to get out, and I think after a while it starts changing your gameplay, which means that Andy Reid starts going, well, he's getting hit a lot, the pocket's starting to collapse, let's start bootlegging, which if you start doing that and start getting him out, the run game changes, the play calling changes, everything changes from what they did at the beginning of the year. So that's why everybody always says that the offensive line is the most important group of players on an NFL field, because they make or break the offense. Because if you have to adjust, your whole game plan changes.
Yeah, and one of the things that's going to be advantageous for the Chiefs right now is that they're healthy. And the problem...
And that's the part that makes no sense.
For Denver, I know. It's not a health issue. It seems to be game planning. It could be just the competition. It could be the matchup. Sometimes the matchups just aren't beneficial to certain teams. This is a game where both of these teams do the same things as well as the other. It's going to be who does them better in this game. Now, Denver is going to be out. They're going to have their backup left tackle, backup right tackle out.
And a defensive tackle.
They're going to have a defensive tackle. They're going to have one of the best wide receivers, SMU alum, Emmanuel Sanders, is going to be, he's questionable. I think he probably sits out another week, would be my guess. But you never know. Some of these wide receivers, just see him come back in. And then also Virgil Green, their starting tight end, being out. That certainly doesn't help when your quarterback is getting sacked a lot, not having that tight end to go to in the middle of the field when you need a check down.
And again, this goes back to the the Broncos made the same decisions, as I said, that the Lions were doing. And I know the Broncos are a way better organization. But they basically stripped their team 2-3 years ago. They got rid of their number one tight end, who was probably one of the best tight ends in the league, top 5. They've gotten rid of some of the wide receivers. And I think a lot of these owners need to be sure that even though it costs money, are these players worth it? And a lot of these players are.
Well, remember we talked about this before, that the contract difference in value is so much higher for these veteran players that we're seeing a lot more of them being sent away or traded or waived.
Hoping that they can have that same success somewhere else.
Exactly, because they feel like I've got to go with the younger player because it costs me pennies on the dollar compared to the older veteran, and maybe I'll get 75% of the value out of it. And so that's a better value proposition for the ownership, for management. But this Denver team has been stripped down. They're not the same team from 2 years ago.
They're not the same Super Bowl teams.
No, and I think that they're going to struggle going forward in the season, especially with Simeon at quarterback. Look, the fact that he was able to beat out Paxton Lynch, and
that's not
Paxton
good.
Lynch,
2 years in a row.
I think Paxton Lynch may be done after this. I mean, he's going to have to go somewhere else to have a shot at becoming a starting quarterback. Because if you get beat out by a 7th-round pick 2 years in a row, there's something wrong.
And all right, so now that we've gone over our opinions about this game, what do you see this game coming down to, and what the final score will be?
I think it's the Broncos are going to get the running game back on track, but I don't think it's enough. I think Simeon is going to get sacked a lot in this game. I think he's going to get hit. I think he's going to get hurried. They need to be able to throw the ball down the field to have a shot in this game, and I don't think they're going to be able to. I think it will be close, though. I think you end up with a 27-20, 27-23 Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are just a better balanced team right now.
I'm going to agree with you, especially if Hunt gets the ground game going. But if the Hunt ground game does not get going, I'm going to take probably a reverse of that and take Broncos, because Broncos have one of the best defensive backfields in the league.
Yeah.
They're
front seven.
They are the air defense. They take out the passing game like no one else does in the league right now. And if Hunt isn't running and they have to pass it, that's going to be a very, very, very tough order to fill for Alex Smith.
Yeah, Tyreek Hill can't get open for 70-yard passes every other play.
So what I'm saying is this all comes down to Hunt in the run game. If the run game goes well, I will maybe go towards what you're saying at 27-23 for the Chiefs, but if it goes the other way around and they can't get the Hunt,
so final decision, you going Broncos?
I just can't see Hunt has not made the progression from week to week the last 2 weeks to be able to say he's going to have a successful game.
So you're going to bet on Simeon?
I'm going to bet on that
that Broncos defense.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to say I'm going to reverse what you said. I think 23-27 Broncos, but that is only I have the ability to change halfway through the game if Hunt gets going. If Hunt and the run game get going,
you're going to tweet out I'm reversing my decision, my prediction. Next, we're going to have World Series and NBA talk. Mavericks on the skids right now. Next.
The NBA was actually very exciting this weekend. Starting on Friday, one of the games that aired was not what I was going to expect. I think it was probably one of the most balanced, most exciting games to watch so far this season, and that was Lakers-Raptors. I could not believe it because I've really gotten tired of the three-point game where they just run up, hack it up in the air, run and hack up. Basically the way Wesley Matthews plays. I don't like that game anymore, and I've been very, very surprised that now that Lonzo Ball has come into the Lakers, they've really started to show a more complete game. They are scoring a lot of dunks, a lot of two-point shots.
What's changed In my view, because I watched the replay of the Lakers against the Washington Wizards, and the Wizards ended up winning that game. The Lakers ended up winning that game against an undefeated Washington team. They moved the ball so much better now. And that was...
Yeah, the guards are unselfish right now.
It used to be that the Lakers in the last couple of years, it was just one-on-one. Every time
ISO.
down the court. Everything was ISO. Isolate Randall, isolate Brandon Ingram, isolate Jordan Clarkson. It was just isolate. And now, with Lonzo in there, I do see it's completely changed. No matter what you say about his shooting, he has changed.
Or about his father.
Or about his father or family. He has changed the way that offense functions.
Because they all know on that team, they all know at any moment I could get the ball. And so what that means is they're starting to move more. They're starting to get open more. They're starting to put in that extra effort because when it's ISO ball, people just sit there and wait. They need to start attacking the basket when they don't have the ball in their hands. They need to be able to start doing a little bit more than just pick and roll. They need to be able to maybe start doing pick and roll, pick and pop, start confusing teams. And like you said, Ball is a good enough shooter at the three-point that they have to be able to respect him. And when they respect him, he opens up lanes for him to pass. And if he starts passing really well, they have to bite on those lanes. And when they do, he beats them from the three. Or he passes it to another three-point shooter. But
now, they still have, they've got a lot of athleticism. And Brandon Ingram's phenomenal. Kuzma's going to be a good player.
Randall's athletic.
They've got a lot of talent. And you can see that they're moving the ball well. It's just not as organized as a team that's going to be in the playoffs needs to be. So they're not quite there, but it seems to be progress. Well, and that's good for them.
Look at a rookie point guard coming into a new system in the NBA. The NBA moves worlds faster than college. So you look at the Mavericks. It's the exact same thing. At least Lonzo has an identity. You look at Dennis Smith Jr., he does not know what he is yet. In college, he was that Russell Westbrook, flying in, dunking on 2-3 people, because let's be honest, the athletic competition in college is not the same.
Yeah.
He comes in here, he decides to be that flying, high, wild, going in, pressing, getting to the rim guy.
Yeah, and after 3 games, they decided that's not going to work.
He decided, because he almost got a season-ending injury if he had landed just a little bit worse than he did. I forgot which team it was against.
It was against the Hawks.
Against the Hawks. So since then, it's sort of like a guy coming off injury. He's been very tentative. He's shooting a 3 more, and his shooting's been pretty good. But they did not bring him in to be a 3-point shooter.
Yeah.
Because he's not a Steph Curry. And you know what? He's a good dribbler. He's not the best dribbler. So they brought him in to penetrate, to open up the field, to be able to, or open up the court to get the ball to other guys, to be able to make those shots. And right now, he's not that. For instance, there have been a couple times in the last game where he's penetrated, and when he even though he has a 1 step to get up and dunk, he takes 2 steps, gets ready to go up and maybe do a layup or dunk, with both feet. And by that time, the defense is on him. He needs to reassert himself as that explosive player, because what's the point of having a 40, 50, 100-inch vertical if you're not using it?
Yeah, and I think, what they need to work on him with is the way he takes his body to the basket when he is attacking the rim. When to dunk, when to use the defender to block the defender out.
And he hasn't been bad at that. He just hasn't been great.
And you see guys like John Wall and Kyrie Irving who are just phenomenal at being able to do that. They're able to contort their bodies so that the defender can't get to the ball and get easy layups. Even though they could just as easily try and dunk the ball, they know that that's not going to be effective for them in the long term. I think, if we see him make a move more towards that style of play, I think that's the kind of player the Mavericks absolutely would love to have.
To be honest, I want a Westbrook who can shoot, and that's what he has the potential of being. He needs to learn his body. He needs to learn what works. To be honest, he needs to dunk more. Even if he's not the one running and dunking, they need to set up plays like they did in the very first play of the season, where he runs out and they give him an alley-oop for a dunk, because that'll open up the field as a threat. Now, with that said, and I know I'm overstepping a lot of games that played this weekend, but I am getting sick and tired of where the NBA's priorities are going. Now it seems like the most important stat in the NBA is the triple-double.
Yeah.
And they're continuing that from last year. They go, oh my gosh. It's like players go, it's like the AAU all over again. Oh my gosh, look how much attention Westbrook is getting because he had so many triple-doubles. I could do triple-doubles. And so everybody,
you looked at what LeBron's done in the last 3 or 4 games and talking about triple-doubles and his numbers being so ridiculous. They're not winning games.
No.
Cleveland's 1-4 on the road. They're not winning games. They're going to make the playoffs. But their team needs to be more well-rounded. Right now, it's like the LeBron show, and everybody else is just kind of playing along, and they don't play any defense whatsoever. Now, this is the typical Cavs not playing defense during the regular season and then, playing defense near the end of the season to kind of warm up for the playoffs. But honestly, this team need to get an identity, because right now you can't play like that during the regular season and just expect to be able to walk into the playoffs. This is a better NBA league right now in terms of talent than it has been in quite a while.
Well, if we're going to look at the 2 teams we all expect to make it, the Cavs and the Warriors again,
yeah.
The Cavs have an issue. LeBron went on to a team that was already built, and they went to the finals. And then the next year they won. The issue becomes when he goes and he joins a team that's already built for success without him, or at least trying to be success without him, and he adds that next wrinkle, then there is a lot of chance for success because that team is built to be able to be or try to be successful without him. Then LeBron decided to be GM LeBron. And he started bringing in, we need 3-pointers. We need 3-pointers to be able to beat the Warriors. Well, you didn't beat them the first time with 3-pointers. You beat them with good defense, some 3-pointers, and a more rounded game.
Yeah.
More passing, not as much ISO. And when he brought in Korver, and when he brought in Korver and all these other players that came in, and they got rid of the players that were good at defense and actually did a lot of stuff well, passing, setting other players up, the team fell apart. Meaning, they went from being a more complete rounded team that everybody was looking to get open and has open shots to a team where they were expecting LeBron to get them open shots, and they were just standing on the arc waiting for them to get the ball to shoot. And the team figured that out pretty quick, especially the Golden State Warriors, who are a decent rebounding and a decent defensive team. Now, what has happened now is LeBron goes, these are the players I want. I want D. Rose. I want D. Rose. I want Dwayne Wade.
Right.
And outside of his ability or his ability to make a decision, they brought in Crowder and a couple other players who I think are going to help more than people think when they are all healthy. Crowder's a good defensive player.
But now Crowder's coming off the bench instead of being a starter.
Yes.
You look at their starting lineup. Is there one player on there that you would think, what a great defensive player?
But they've gone from a 3-point shooting team to an old team.
Yeah.
Their starting lineup is old. Crowder should be starting. A lot of these younger players should be starting. D. Rose is hurt, or at least limited.
Yeah.
I can't see this going well because if they're already struggling now with not only injuries but health, speed, endurance, it's not going to get better 82 games down the road.
Yeah.
And what that means is they're going to start resting players. And when you start resting players, you're going to start hurting the brand. And when you start hurting the brand, people are going to start tuning out. When people start tuning out, the NBA's average.
I wouldn't be surprised if they start losing some of these, big, Tuesday night, Thursday night, Sunday night games because of just how bad they are during the regular season. Those, TNT, now it's still LeBron, so he's probably still going to get them into a bunch of these, primetime games. But there's more exciting teams to watch. We talked about some of those teams. The Knicks are not one of the teams I thought would be exciting.
But they are.
But they beat the Cleveland Cavaliers last night. They routed them.
Porzingis beat.
And he's one of the most exciting young players in the league. I was just trying to look up his numbers. He had 32 points. He's rebounding. He's doing everything that they need him to do. And with Carmelo Anthony no longer there, he gets to show out. And I think what New York needs to do...
And he plays defense.
If they brought in Eric Gordon and Tyson Chandler, how perfect would that be for a New York Knicks team that would be desperate to get into the playoffs this year?
And let's be honest, because outside of that, it all goes back to LeBron. And I know we've saying LeBron, but it does. And you know what I really see at the end of this year?
Is he the NBA? Some people think so.
Yeah, that could be like a Dos Equis commercial. But I see it going this way. LeBron is trying one last time to win in Cleveland.
Yeah.
And then I really see him going to L.A. That's the thing that this team's missing in L.A. is that player who can lift them up higher when he's on the court. And right now, if you look at that young athletic team who's staying close in games, they're not getting blown out.
Yeah.
If you bring in a LeBron and maybe bring in a Paul George.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to have to give up some players because they could get rid of a Randall for a Paul George.
Yeah.
And not lose and gain something, not lose something. But I think that what everybody's been saying lately is absolutely true. I think everybody's moving west.
This is what in my mind be crazy. You got Ball, George, LeBron, Brandon Ingram, and Brooke Lopez. Holy crap. That starting five would be
they would do old school,
best.
Beat you up basketball.
That would definitely put them up there with the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, because even though he's not as effective as a shooter, that would be a Kyrie Irving light for LeBron James. Someone who could get the ball to him the way LeBron likes to get the ball, and that is in the air, going for a dunk, completely open, taking a shot. Look at the way they played Miami.
Yeah.
That open flow game. That's what they wanted. But when we come back, we talk
World Series.
Oh, thanks for being a little bit presumptuous with that. But World Series. We're going to come back with World Series. Next.
Maybe you can make retirement happen. After all, you made her college years happen. Opening that education savings account when she was little. Spearheading a campus tour. And another, and another, and another, and another. Bam! Deciphering financial aid. She was like, what? But now she's like, you aced planning for college. Now get the tips you need to get on track at aceyourretirement.org.
Greatest game in World Series history? I think that might be a stretch, but I'll give it a top 5.
Man, after game 2, you just didn't think it could get any better, or at least crazier.
Or longer. That went from being a short game 2.
No, it was game 1. Game 1 was the Kershaw-Keuchel. It was 2 hours and 28 minutes. It was
right.
The shortest World Series game ever to the longest World Series game ever in Game 5. I mean, extra innings again. This World Series has just been incredible. Everything that could happen has happened.
Let's run this down a little bit. And I'm sorry I have to read this, but I want to get it right. So 25 runs in one game. 25 runs.
Yes.
28 hits, 417 pitches, 14 pitchers used, 14, and 5 hours and 17-minute game time. It's unbelievable.
Almost 3 hours longer than Game 1 with the same pitcher.
I remember going to sleep last night, looking at my phone at 1 o'clock going, it's still on?
It's never going to end.
It was horrible how long this game was, but I bet you it was exciting the whole way through.
And it seems like now
that Houston stadium must have smelled really bad.
Which bullpen is going to give up the least amount of runs? Because both of these bullpens have fallen apart completely.
You know why? Because of what we've been saying all along. And we see it in the end.
You can't expect them to pitch 5 innings every night.
No, yeah. So what happens is it's happening across sports. Billy Beane destroyed
sports.
Yeah, destroyed sports as a whole, and the NFL followed suit.
You heard it here.
And the NBA is now following suit as well, where they're starting to look, well, we got to keep track of these minutes, and we got to do this. But the problem is,
let's rest the entire San Antonio Spurs starting lineup for an entire game so that the fans come and watch some guy from Lithuania that nobody's ever heard of.
Yeah. I think the same thing's happening in baseball. These pitchers have got to give you 8.
Nobody wants to see a 6th inning reliever. Nobody does.
Because then what happens is if the game goes long, you've got to go through your entire bullpen.
14 pitchers.
And then you've got to go through them again the next night. And the next night, these pitchers are exhausted because guess what? People don't realize this. Those closers put as much effort into 2 innings as the starting pitcher does in 8 innings because what they're brought in to do is throw as hard as they can or as crazy as they can. So if they're throwing a curve, they're throwing an extreme curveball. And what happens is if you get them over and over and over and over, those extreme curveballs start to straighten out and straighten out and straighten out until they become slow fastballs. And guess what happens then?
Yes, and we saw tons of home runs last night. In both bullpens giving up massive amount of runs. Kershaw and Keuchel. Kershaw looked great through 3. Great through 3 innings. Then in the 4th inning,
fell apart.
Everything just totally fell apart. It was a miracle he made it through the inning.
It's like the baseball.
And then the next inning, he gets 3 runs. The Dodgers got 3 runs in the top of the 4th. So Kershaw comes back out, new life. Guess what he does? Throws it all away. Hey, come on. I mean, these starting pitchers, I don't know what's going on.
I really feel like the baseball gods looked down and said, let's mix this thing up. And it just went crazy because if you had shown me, like they say all the time, if you had shown me a script that this was a movie, I'd have been like, you've been drinking the sauce too much, man. This could never happen.
Yeah.
A 5-hour, 17-minute game, more than 12 innings, with 14 pitchers?
Yeah, and the Dodgers have not been a run-scoring team, but the Astros bullpen is so bad that the Dodgers are just decimating it. And then you come into the World Series with the Dodgers bullpen that has been lights out the entire season, the entire postseason, and then all of a sudden they fall apart. This is a huge mess.
So just for the sake of this, you are the other manager, and I'm the manager of the Dodgers. So I've always wondered this.
The guy who got in the bar fight.
Yeah. So I grab that phone that goes to the bullpen, and I pick it up, and the guy says, "Operator." I say, "Give me to the other one," and your phone rings, ring, ring, ring. Yeah. I'm tired. Why don't we say you win? Yeah. Why don't we say you win this game, or I win this game, and I'll let you win the next one because it's been 5 hours and my pitching staff is done, and I know your pitching staff is done.
It's way past my bedtime. I know that, and
I need to get in a bar fight, right? You need to get in a bar fight.
Yes, I don't have enough time to get to the bar before 2 o'clock to get in a fight. No, this is just—it's insane. And now at least. This is the last game at home for Houston, so we're going to get a day break here before we get another game. So luckily, these teams will have a little bit of rest. But now, remember what we talked about, Verlander against the Dodgers number 2, which I don't think it's going to be you. I think they probably should bring you out.
Well, there's only 2 games left.
But Hill's been great. It's got to be.
They need to put out their best. It's 2 games left.
Hill's probably going to come out. He's been the better pitcher so far this series, but you is the guy who you think, look, if you're going to have a guy that when your back is against the wall and has to come out with a good pitching performance, I think it would be him. But they're even talking about Kershaw coming back and pitching Game 7 on, would it be 2 days rest? Like, how much insanity would that be? Now, he only pitched 4 innings, but he had 93 pitches. I don't know. I don't think that can happen.
93 pitches is not a lot.
Well, it is in today's game.
That's the part that's the problem. It used to be the Nolan Ryans and those guys, they'd pitch until their arm fell off. And then guess what? They'd glue it, super glue it, maybe put some staples in it, and they'd throw 9 innings the next night if you needed it from them.
Yeah.
And then they would still get in a fight. They'd put a guy in a headlock and punch him in the face a whole bunch of times.
Well, that's why the Astros, I think, have a better shot at closing this thing out in Game 6 because you got Verlander who can go out there and give you 9 innings. And look what he did in the last game. He went out there, he gave up 3 runs, but it was only on 2 hits. 2 hits over 7 innings. If he can go out and do that, the way the Dodgers bullpen has been, I think the Astros have a good shot. And this is really going to be their shot. The Astros have to win this game. Because if they don't win this game, they know that they're going to get a combination of Hill and Kershaw.
In
Kershaw. In LA. And in a Game 7. And it's going to be crazy.
Hot.
Yeah. And I just think the Astros have to have this game. Because you don't want McCullers or Morton in that Game 7 pitching against the best pitching that the Dodgers have to offer.
All right. So Scott is listening. Scott is our producer. Scott, I'm calling in the IOU from last week when we had to cut the show short. We've rehired you. We're going to have to go one more segment. We have to do college football.
College football
Huge
review.
weekend.
Yes.
And
I mean, a lot of changes in the rankings, and we've got to go over it all.
It went too. It was too big. If it was just a normal football weekend, we'd be like,
no.
Scott, you get to take a little bit of a break. But no. We've got to talk college football next.
We're so excited to invite you to our Stacy Furniture Anniversary Sale.
Save today on Stacy's outstanding selection, up to 50% off select items throughout the store.
Now's the time to buy that new bedroom, living room, or dining room suit. You can't beat these prices anywhere.
Name brands like Bernhard, Hooker, Universal, and Cheryl, all on sale today.
It's Stacy's Anniversary Sale only happens once a year.
Shop Stacy's today or visit us online at stacyfurniture.com.
Remember, when you're shopping at Stacy's, you're shopping with family.
College football review, we wouldn't have done it except that this weekend was the most insane weekend we've seen so far in college football. Way more interesting than our Sunday NFL experience. I sat around and watched a ton of football because everything was huge. Everything was on the line this weekend. And you
didn't want to have to deal with your children.
I know, that too. This was like the beginning of the end, though, of the college, who is going to be in that top four to get into that college football playoff.
This is when these are when the games really matter. This is where the top 8 are jockeying to get into that top 4. Right now, Alabama got a break from their not-so-challenging schedule. LSU and Michigan and Mississippi State are awaiting them in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, their schedule is
so easy,
ridiculously easy. If you have Mississippi State and LSU as your toughest matches this year, you are doing pretty well with your scheduling. And Alabama's going to be undefeated at the end of the season. They're going to be the #1 seed. That was the only known after this weekend because everything else got obliterated.
Yeah, I mean, walking into this, and I mean walking, it was like walking into a buzzsaw, and it was Halloween weekend, so it's justifiable. You walked into it going, Penn State's #2.
Man, they look really good.
Really good.
They've got a great shot at making the final. They are pretty much done now.
Yeah.
They've got a very challenging schedule going forward. They're going to have to hope on an Ohio State loss. They're going to have to hope on beating Ohio State more than Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game if they think they have any shot at getting into this college football playoff.
Oklahoma got a breath of air because now they go in and I don't care what anybody says.
They've got a shot at getting back in.
Because what it is they've got 3 teams now that are in the top 15. No other division can say that. No other conference can say we have 3 teams in the top 15.
Would have helped if TCU had won, but look, Oklahoma's got new life.
But we talked about this.
Yes, I know.
Iowa State, now that loss doesn't look so bad.
Yes.
Because Iowa State now has an identity.
Kind of a toss-up.
So that should raise them even more. Is now that is not a stinker of a loss because now it beat 2 really good teams, and one was a really good defensive team.
Yeah, I think they end up moving up.
And you were talking about their quarterback / linebacker.
Yes.
Who has had 1 billion tackles this year?
Yeah,
1 billion.
Unbelievable. He's going to be in the NFL, which a guy who was a top quarterback making it in the NFL as a middle linebacker is just a gigantic story. But look, Penn State losing. They don't have a shot anymore. Georgia moves up to #2 with an easy win. They have another one of those teams with an easy schedule going forward.
The SEC is not the division it used to be, or the conference it used to be. Outside of Georgia
and Alabama, it's been cakewalks both sides. And Shireen, and you've been in near me when I've had these conversations, Shireen will shout from the hilltops up and down that the SEC is one of the best divisions in football. And I'm sorry, but they're not. But they've got 2 good teams. I look at the Big Ten right now, and they just look like a powerhouse conference. But they've fallen apart. Or they're eating themselves alive. The problem is they're eating themselves up. I think they're cannibalizing themselves is their biggest problem. Wisconsin moves up. Their schedule's really easy looking forward. I like Wisconsin. Their hope is to get into the Big Ten championship and play against Ohio State. And if they can win that game, I think they get into the playoff picture. If they go because they are undefeated, they lose that game. I think they're one of those, one-loss teams
that don't make it.
And I think that sucks, but it just says a lot about the Big Ten West is just not that great.
And let's be honest. Well, let's be honest.
It's that Big Ten East.
But the Big Ten. I'm sorry, but the Big Ten West. You can say that division is as good or as bad as both SEC divisions.
Yes, I agree.
That have just two really good teams in it.
Yes.
So what I'm saying is that I think it's unfair for someone like Wisconsin, who is year in and year out in the top 10 every year.
Yeah.
I think it's preferential treatment to these other big schools. That people want, these voters, these writers, these media people are so enamored with, well, if we can get some big teams in there.
Yeah.
If we can get a Michigan, if we can get Ohio State, if we can get Alabama, if we can get Florida, if we can get...
But what does that do to the whole college football landscape? Because teams like UCF, USF, Boise State, Utah, BYU, those teams will never be able to get into these playoffs.
And it's not fair. Well, what they've got to do is they've got to start playing the big schools now.
Yeah.
BYU has got to.
They've got to keep scheduling in Oklahoma.
So if BYU, let's say Wisconsin wants to make an impact, they've 3 or 4 years in a row. They've got to either choose.
They got to get a
Georgia or USC or an Alabama or something. And if they start either keeping close or winning those games, they will now become part of the conversation.
Yeah.
But the problem is that a lot of these teams that deserve it, TCU being one of them, who.
One loss, and they're pretty much out of it now.
Yeah,
it's going to be really difficult for them to get into it.
TCU did it the way I told you. They played the big schools. They don't shy away from competition. Yeah. And a lot of times they lose, but they get brownie points for playing these big teams.
Well, it certainly helps since they moved into the Big 12 for them to get opportunities getting into these college football playoff pictures. Look at some other teams. Notre Dame, they've really been under the radar this year. They've got an awesome shot at getting into the college football playoff. I think they will get in, and I think it's because they have one of the hardest schedules in college football, and they've self-made, and they're winning those games. The only game they've lost this year was 1 point to Georgia, who is going to be in that college football playoff picture. Those last two are up for grabs, and I think Notre Dame, if they win out, they get one of those spots.
Yeah, and
it's really that fourth spot right now. We got like 6 or 7 teams trying to get into that fourth spot.
The only way that it would be better for Notre Dame if they made the playoff is if USC made the playoff and USC versus Notre Dame were in the championship game. That would be epic.
And USC's played much better now, but I think it's too little too late.
The issue Notre Dame has is that they are not only fighting a hard schedule, they are fighting the media.
Yeah.
Because the media does not want them in there.
They don't want this non-conference.
Yes, because they have investments in the conferences. Yes. And not just that. Notre Dame has no conference to cheer for them, like you said. So what happens is if they go there, it's just the Notre Dame people.
Yeah.
Where if the Big 12 makes it, Oklahoma makes it, they're going to get some tune-ins from Oklahoma State, TCU.
Notre Dame needs to decide that they're going to join fully the ACC, which is what everything else that they have outside of football is ACC. They need to either say we're fully joining ACC, or in football we're going to join the Big Ten.
Big Ten would be better.
I think that the money issue is certainly a huge problem for them because they're making so much money being on their own. But I think long term, they're going to see
is it money or championships?
Not going to be there.
Is it money or championships?
Exactly. And I think if they want to get more opportunities at those championships, they're going to have to join one of those conferences. And look, both of those conferences, they're good enough to win those conferences. So I don't see why they won't do it. I mean, other than the money. Look at Oklahoma. Look at TCU. Oklahoma, I think, after
they have a chance of sweeping.
Got a shot of getting in, and a much better shot than before this weekend. If Penn State had won, it would
have been over.
I don't think they would have been able to get in.
Because I hate to say it, but if it comes down to Ohio State, Oklahoma being the two teams fighting for that playoff spot, sorry, Ohio State. I don't care that you played number 2 Penn State. That was in your division.
Yeah.
That's in your conference. You had to play them.
Yeah.
Oklahoma didn't need to play you. They could have played someone easy. Ohio State never plays an easy person out of conference.
Yeah.
I mean, they always play an easy person out of conference. Sorry. So my issue becomes, if they line up, they got to take Oklahoma. because Oklahoma beat them.
I think the question is not as much going to be Ohio State. If Ohio State wins out, I mean, they are in the Big Ten. It's going to be tough for Oklahoma.
Yeah, but Michigan isn't as good. A lot of these teams are not as good.
Here's the problem: is you have Miami still. Now, if Miami beats Notre Dame, Miami gets that 3rd spot. That leaves the door open for Oklahoma to get a 4th spot, but you still have Wisconsin and Clemson ahead of them. And I think if Clemson wins the ACC, if Wisconsin can win the Big Ten, it's going to be really challenging for Oklahoma to get in.
Yes. I don't think Wisconsin's going to win.
Yeah, and obviously if Ohio State beats Wisconsin in the Big Ten, that
not going to
really
consider that
opens the door. And I think Miami loses to Notre Dame. Notre Dame gets that 3rd spot, and really it comes down to OSU versus Oklahoma. And that early game that Oklahoma won at the Horseshoe could be the difference in getting that 4th spot. But I think this is the most exciting that I've ever
been
about college football, because this weekend was
the only way this gets better. The only way this gets better is when they open up 2 or 4 more spots.
Yes.
They need to open up 2 or 4 more spots and make this a real championship. It might be
interesting to say that the top 2 teams get a bye.
Yes.
And then you play the next.
Do it just like the NFL.
Yeah.
Bring in 6 teams.
2 teams play, and those teams play against the teams that got the bye, and those teams play, and then
the championship. And then the championship. That's the way it works, right? So you go wild card division, championship, and then whatever the top one is. Yeah. So both ones go wild card, division, champion, and then the 2 winners play each other. So the way it needs to be.
Yes.
And guess what? When that happens and these players go into the NFL, they aren't going to be so tired because they've trained to play 16, 17 games, not just 10.
Yeah, and I think that, that's what we're going to see in the future. This year we're not going to get it. Does that keep Oklahoma out of it? Does it keep TCU out of it? I think it does keep TCU out of it. Oklahoma's still got a shot, but I think
they got to go into bedlam.
They've got to hope for some results.
They got to go into bedlam, which is, I think, by far the coolest name for a stadium. But I like bedlam. You know what bedlam is, right? Well, bedlam was an insane asylum in England.
Yes.
So that's why they call it. They say
like the symbol for chaos, basically.
Yeah. But I mean, that's their version of the swamp in Florida. I think that's an awesome name. It has a ring to it. The promos have been awesome. It shows the 2 of them. And then
OSU's offense against OU's defense. I don't know, man. I mean, if OU wins that game, they've proven a lot because their defense right now is really struggling. OSU's offense
Oklahoma has got – it's going to be a game of who punts first.
Yeah.
It's going to go score, or who field goal, score, it's over. Yeah. Field goal, punt, it's over. Yeah. Field goal, then it continues. But I mean, it's going to be a stereotypical
Big
shootout.
12 shootout, yeah.
And you know what? I hate it. I hate that everybody downs the Big 12. Those are some of the most exciting games, period. That's why everybody's
entertaining.
That's why everybody watches Red River. Yeah. That's why everybody watches it.
Yeah, it's always entertaining, and rarely do these, even outside of the games themselves, it's always exciting just between the fans, because the fans in the Big 12 are just crazy sometimes. Nuts.
But with that said, we will update you tomorrow on NBA, Monday Night Football, and more tomorrow. This is Off the Bench.